Well, I'm an architect and I've been working with natural materials, earthen materials in particular, for over 40 years in New Zealand now, and a lot of that work has been research and finding ways of making earthen buildings and other natural materials work in our particular climate and in our own environment. And there's always been a bit missing for me, and that's been able to find time or resources in which we can really experiment and innovate. And as the building codes have tightened up on what you are able to do fairly easily, this has become more acute. And for many years now, I've had this dream of setting up some kind of an organisation or space or place where we are able to experiment, to innovate, try things out, see what works.
My training is as an architect, and I had my own sole practice for a number of years, and did a lot of soul searching about what was the most useful use of that skill and training, and decided that there's something really powerful in having a built example of what you're trying to promote. And so from 20 years ago, I started putting all my energies into developing Earthsong Eco Neighbourhood as a living example of a sustainable housing community. Sustainable both environmentally in terms of eco-building and also in terms of human relationships and community. Walking around, smelling, hearing, seeing natural building in place is just so much more powerful and inspiring than reading about it in a book. And really, I think that's what I would like YIMFY to be doing as well, is to helping to support those tangible examples, trialling different materials and systems, making them available, much more available to people, to say, well, actually these materials are possible, here's the ways to use them well and safely, and let's really think about the materials and the systems that we use to live in for our own sake as healthy humans and for the sake of the rest of the biosphere. It's really important.
I come from a background in IT and media, not a building background professional whatsoever, but I've always had an interest in natural building, and when we moved to New Zealand the intention was to always build a natural family home, and through this process I met Graham North and found out about the YIMFY project, and thought this was something that was important and something which I felt I could contribute something to. All of us in YIMFY believe that YIMFY needs to grow to become the why, what, how resource for New Zealand's specific natural building. A central hub, if you like, for both the building industry, owner builders, or just people with an interest in natural building. The fact of the matter is we can't go on building the way we are. It's just not sustainable. It's not affordable. It's not sustainable. It's not environmentally sound. And fundamentally, it's not a responsible way to build anymore. We know better. There are great examples around the world of how to do this better. And that's what we want to do. We really want to create something New Zealand specific to help people understand that there are alternatives out there.
My father died of an industrial disease from asbestos exposure. My son had meningitis from living in a damp, mouldy house. There's been a child die recently in Auckland from bad housing, predominantly. And I remember when I was at school, there was asbestos panels in the ceilings, and all the kids used to jump up and poke holes in them. And it just is a bit overwhelming to think about just how much toxic stuff is out there in our environments and in our public environments. So I'm talking about our homes as well as schools and places where people work, as well as commune. So part of my interest is in both physical and the psychological health too of how we are affected by buildings and how they affect, and of course how we might even treat them if we don't like them. That's another thing that interests me. So I've worked in mental hospitals at different stages of my working life, and people thought very carefully about the environments that were built to aid people's well-being. And I wonder that we do that anymore or enough. And so the combination of feeling more rested, more animated, safe, and well in our homes as well as our workplaces and our shared community spaces, I think is very important.
I mean, over the last decade or two, three, I mean, there has been a growing environmental awareness, and this is being picked up by the building industry, and environmentally sustainable design, or there's all sorts of names for the process of being a bit more environmentally conscious is certainly around. A lot of that work's been focused on energy and energy use and water consumption of buildings. Not so much has been focused on the materials themselves or the embodied energy that materials have. And although the embodied energy, the grey energy if you like, that is contained within any building material or process may be relatively small over the life of a building, it still is significant. But I'm also very, very interested in what people can use that's local, being able to build from their local resources, local materials, natural materials that are not too processed, they aren't toxic, is totally crucial. And it's an aspect of building which is very largely ignored by the profession.
25 years ago I got interested in natural house building and joined the Building Biology and Ecology Institute, studied under them, and then read many books. You know, my bedtime reading would be how to make a mud brick or how to build a straw bale house or whatever. So we started going down that path. Since then, of course, we've established our company, BioBuild. So it's a passion of mine and my wife Sharon's, and now we have this construction company where we call ourselves natural house builders. And so the idea of a truly natural house is that folk will come into it and they go, my goodness, I don't know what it is about this place, but I love it. And a true YIMFY house, a true natural house, the whole house is doing that. Everything is kind of like, in a way, meant to be. And then we have science that backs those things up, you know. Nothing balances humidity for the human lung better than clay. There is actually good science to back up these things. A lot of our information comes from NASA. How do you purify air in the space shuttle? Well, turns out mother-in-law's tongue and peace lily, drawing air down through the roots, are really good at purifying things like benzene fumes. So, you know, where does all that knowledge come from? Where is a centre that this can all come from? And that's the YIMFY Centre. Has all of these kinds of things where we can learn about what it is, and then the idea is to get some of these things built, like where we are today at Earth Song, where you can come and go, I don't know what it is about this place, but it's got a great feel. And I think that it's not just visual, it's these other perceptions that we have, buttons being pushed that a lot of us aren't even aware of what's happening, but we know we love it.
I've lived in New Zealand all my life, and I think that we're really truly blessed living in this beautiful country. And so I've always been interested in the things that make up the place, like the landforms and the rivers and the seas, and the plants, the trees, the birds. And at the same time, I'm really interested at how we as human beings fit into that. And that we're part of it, that we're not just visitors. And I'd really notice that as we've become increasingly urbanised, that there's more and more people who have never had the really close connection that I've had. And I'm not saying I'm the only one. There's lots of people who have and still do have, but I think there's a problem there because when you are really closely connected with your landscape and the other creatures that we share it with, then you're really also conscious of the actions, the consequences of your own actions, and of your inactions too.
So the idea of a place, an environmental centre or an appropriate building technology centre, has been very much in my mind for a long time. And this has sort of accelerated in the last few years and helped enormously with the Winston Churchill Fellowship in 2010, which partially funded me to go and look at such centres overseas. And from this I've developed the idea of the YIMFY Centre, the Yes in My Front Yard Centre, a place where we can showcase appropriate building technology that we know will work. But behind that we need to connect with everyone who's working in the field or who's interested in supporting this sort of work. And so the YIMFY Centre is evolving into a place where it will act as a hub for a network, a place where people can help and encourage people more remotely to carry out some experimental work, but also be a place where people can come and learn and see, feel the cloth. Very much interested in learning by doing, and very, very interested in the idea of also assisting owner builders to use local resources to build themselves good quality houses out of natural materials.
So as time's gone on, I've become really conscious of the fact that there's a lot of people who are really interested in using natural materials and natural systems, but they are under the illusion that they cannot do it unless they have a lifestyle block and unless they are going to be building themselves or largely involved in the building. And there's just so many people who are not in that situation, but they do actually really care about the environment and they do care about the consequences of what they're going to do. So I started thinking, well, you know, how would things have to be for that to happen? And I think it's just, if you just think about the process, I'd love to see a world where I walked into a local building supply merchant and on the shelves there was a number of different natural plasters that I could use. There were natural paints, there were oils available, there were racks full of timber that was untreated but durable. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see, and I'd like to then think that, okay, I want to start this building and that I had choices. There wasn't just one builder who knew how to build out of this material. Most builders did, because they learnt it when they did their trades. It was part of their training. And that when I wanted to go and employ an architect or a designer, that they also knew about it because it was part of their training. They'd learnt how to, the different ways that you had to detail for building out of earth and building out of straw bale. They knew about hempcrete. They knew which timbers that they could specify for different things, and they also were confident that it was available. And then when you went to go and get your building consent, the building consent officer didn't just throw their hands up in horror thinking there's this crazy person who wants to build their walls out of hempcrete, or they want to stuff their ceiling cavities full of straw. That was just like, oh yeah, okay, it's got straw bale there and it's got earth here, and it was just a matter of course. They knew about it and they had all the required documentation. So that's what I'd really like to see happen. And in order for that to happen, there's a lot of work to be done, and that's why I have become part of the YIMFY organisation, because I want to see it happening. I would like to see things change in my lifetime.
So, look, I mean, YIMFY is very much in its early stages. We've not publicly launched YIMFY yet, and my main role, I guess, within the project is to help build the website and media around YIMFY to create a central knowledge base, if you like, as a resource for people to access for natural building within New Zealand. You know, in order for us to get this project going, we're going to need financing, and I guess that's where we are at the moment. The lot of work's been done behind the scenes on research, on gathering the team together, but the fact of the matter is, we need funding, and that funding will enable us to build a solid foundation that we can build YIMFY on over time. All of us at YIMFY feel that it's important that the YIMFY project is a success. It's not just about natural building, it's about the people of New Zealand, it's about building a better built environment. It's about building better communities, it's about encouraging local economies. There are the obvious sustainability and environmental issues, but it is more than that. It's about leaving a legacy for future generations. We can't continue the way we are, we can't carry on building the way we are. It's not sustainable and it's just not responsible, and things need to change.